Hello, this is an assessment for restoration of a Bechstein Model 4 upright piano made in 1894 and 120 centimetres tall it should be, but it's taller than that because it's got very tall casters. It's about 124 or 5, and that's making the pedals too high, so they're extremely high. They're 12 centimetres from the floor, and we've mentioned before that 7 is normal on a modern piano, and it's nice when they're even lower than that. So you need to go down by 5 centimetres, which you could do by changing the casters. The casework, somebody stripped the case without repolishing it. I think that's what's happened, and it's very matte finish. You can see there's excellent veneer, as there would be on rosewood. Bechstein veneer is always very beautiful. That's the mark of the music stand. There's the music stand hidden inside, which pulls out like that. So that's all in one piece, but again that's been stripped. So the impression of the piano is you can see sort of showing through here where it's been stripped. I don't know if that's some sort of white stripper or something, but definitely needs repolishing. So if we stripped the piano, it would look similar to this before it's polished, though I think a little bit tidier, and then it would be repolished. The veneer's generally all there. There's a little bit of chip here and there, but generally the veneer's there. And the piano itself, well, the Model 4 Bechstein is extremely common in the UK, or rather not common, but it's one of the most common Bechsteins. So amongst Bechsteins, it's one of the most common. And the Model 4 has, if you can identify it, because it's covered wrest plank. This is a Bechstein Model 9, much later actually. It's a 1920s piano, but they started the Model 9 from 1902. The earlier Model 9s are not too keen on actually, but you can see it has an open wrest plank here. So that's what I wanted to show you, what an open wrest plank looks like. And this wrest plank doesn't seem to suffer from drying out with central heating in the same way as the earlier wrest planks pre-1902. The models 1 to 5 became 6 to 10, so the Model 4 is the shortest one, and that became the Model 9, and it had an open wrest plank. Now the wrest planks on these tends to suffer from central heating. The open wrest planks on the Model 9 don't, so nothing to do with them being open or closed. It's to do with the wood and what the wood was made of. But these tuning pins are reasonably tight, and according to the tuner apparently they stay tight, but they're very large tuning pins. So the Model 5 was made up to 1902 when it was taken over by the Model 9. Somebody's restrung the piano, and very large tuning pins now, probably the maximum size actually. So with that you couldn't put larger ones in. If the wrest plank gets faulty, and with central heating does tend to dry out, then they will go loose however big the tuning pins are. So these are maximum. You couldn't restring it again, because you'd have to change the wrest plank anyway, because you wouldn't have big enough tuning pins to put in. They're probably one size below the maximum, but nearly maximum. That one's broken, as you can see, and its pitch is about, I think it's 434 or so. It should be 440, so it needs pitch raising. There's a good chance another string will break. We'd lubricate and here, and then we take the string down and back up, and hopefully it wouldn't break, but that one's broken before that one, so we would be very fortunate if we didn't break another one. And the treble haven't broken at all, so that probably wouldn't break a treble string. Now the piano is very used. If you look at the hammers, you'll see a lot of wear on the hammers there, and some of them are quite loose. It's got sideways play, so that needs sorting out, otherwise they just get looser and looser. There was one here particularly that had a lot of sideways play. I think you can tell by looking at the end actually. Usually if it's got a lot of sideways play, it's flatter. So that one's the one. There we are. There's a lot of sideways play, so that needs checking, and if it's left like that it just wears a lot at the end, a lot more, so it's important to get that done. And the some regulation is good, like the dampers, they lift off just past halfway generally, so that's good news, and they lift off well with the pedal, so that's good as well. But it's very worn indeed, and you wouldn't get a good tone out of those hammers without replacing them. You could possibly reface, that might be a possibility, but replacing them would be even better. Some work's been done on the action, and therefore the tapes are broken when they're taken off and put back on. They usually break here. There's another one that's been replaced, and it does need working on. If there's some rasping sounds when you press the keys, I don't know if you'll be able to hear them, but there's needing graphiting here, and quite a lot of work needs doing really generally. Oh, and if you play you don't see the hammers double bouncing. That's because it's well out of regulation. If there's a slack here, and if that slack is taken up, then it won't double bounce. So that one isn't double bouncing, it's less slack, but just about not double bouncing. So there's lots of slack on the keys here. It's just been played a lot, and there's the breakage there that's been repaired. That's fine, I think. If we look at the felt at the back of the keys, you can see it's uneven in places. It's not so obvious as some, but you can see there's another one, and if you turn this sideways, I've taken the screws off so you can see that it's definitely been eaten by moth larvae. So it's been replaced at some stage, actually, this felt, but since then it's been eaten by moth larvae, and you can see some definite marks of that. And we'll have a look under the keys to see if they've damaged there. So as is so common on older pianos, you can see the moth droppings there. That's the same colour as the felt, moth larvae droppings, and they haven't actually damaged them as much as they would normally do. You can see little marks there. Sometimes these are totally destroyed, very often they are, and the centre ones are fine, and the back rail too doesn't look damaged either, so that's just managed to get away without too much damage from the moth. We'd obviously want to treat it with moth killer, and if you use lavender spray or cedar spray or something like that, then that prevents them, it discourages the moths from attacking. So moth killer first, and then discouraging it afterwards by using spray. Not on the felts. You can spray the sides of the case inside and down the bottom of the piano regularly. That will tend to deter moths. See on the back of the keys here, there's lots of oxidization on the lead. Doesn't seem to be such that they're touching each other, which very often happens, especially on grand pianos. That's always happening. But if you touch that, by the way, so lead oxide is poisonous, really. If you ever work on that, it's a good idea to use gloves. I'll just demonstrate how taking up the slack on the key here can stop the double bouncing. So double hitting there because of slack on the key. So now if we turn the capstan so that it's higher up, then we take away the key slack. So now that's cured the double bouncing. Did also have to adjust the back check, taking it in a bit further as well. There's a very slight amount of slack. It's quite a good idea to leave a very small. We could leave a bit less slack than that, actually, but if it's not slack at all, it could end up lifting the hammer up like that. So it should be resting obviously on the hammer rail, and maybe a very little bit of slack here as well. Now there's a major issue. There's the bridge here is cracking, as you can see, or the pins here are pulling sideways on it. That's quite a common thing to happen. It happens on Bechsteins quite often, actually. You can see if you can see there, the bridge pins are pulling sideways. Eventually the tone on this string is not too bad at the moment, but eventually that will come very thin, as it's not got any angle here at all. And unfortunately the bass bridge as well has got a more severe crack, really. You can see there. So as the strings pull sideways, they'll start to buzz, and they won't produce any tone at all either. There's also a crack at the end of the bridge here, so quite a lot of damage. Really needs, what you would have to do with this is recap the whole bridge, which is commonly done. Sometimes the bridge is recapped with a slightly thicker cap, just to raise it and give it a bit more down bearing as well. So in summary, there's a lot of work to do on this piano. The rest blank, which is what you normally, we've done so many of them on Model 4 Bechsteins, because it's a beautiful piano if it's fully restored. But this one has a lot of work. They've got the cracks on the bridges. That's something requires recapping bridges, really. So we'd normally restring at the same time when we're doing that. And there's one string missing. The strings sound reasonable, actually, but we would normally restring. If it was a stock piano, we would definitely restring and replace the hammers. Obviously, if you want to do a budget job, replacing the hammers really you do need, because you'll never get the tone, I don't think, out of these hammers otherwise. And you can see the other jobs, it's had some moth, well, it's the sort of piano which is going to be expensive. It's actually be cheaper to buy, unless you particularly wanted this piano restored. Sometimes if it's got sentimental value from being in the family, then it can be fully restored, and we have fully restored these pianos with great success. But it's much more costly than buying a good reconditioned one, perhaps slightly later piano, or Model 4 that's been reconditioned might cost less. So I hope that's helpful. I'm just going to play the piano and try to get some idea what the tone of it's like at the moment. So that's an assessment of a Bechstein Model 4 upright piano made in 1894, and there are, of the Bechsteins, this was one of the more common ones, and the common problem is the rest plank, but this one doesn't seem to have that problem, although the tuning pins are very large tuning pins now, so if they did go loose you'd have to replace the rest plank. These, by the way, that's where the sconces were, candlesticks, and that's been covered over with a kind of triangular. That's unusual to see that, and this has all been stripped and almost like prior to polishing, so we would polish, I think we'd strip it a bit more probably and then repolish it. There's so much work to do on this piano, and it is a beautiful instrument. You can probably hear the tone, the underlying tone is good, but there's so much work to do on it really that certainly if it was a piano that was in stock we would have to fully restore it. There's too many issues on it, and at the moment the bridges are not causing a buzzing or not causing much problem, but they will eventually. So it's a piano that's just beginning to get to the point at where it's going to have to be fully restored. The minimum you could do on this is regulate it, reface the hammers, and hopefully not break any strings when you pitch raise it, and have to replace one string anyway. Got a very beautiful bass. Some sticky keys there. There's lots of work that needs doing, unfortunately, and the pedals are extremely high. You see my foot on the pedals and you can see that's not a good angle at all, so it's uncomfortable to play. It's possible, but the end of the pedal is going to get very worn because you're pushing the end all the time, and you often see the end of the pedals broken because that's happening. So changing these casters, there's plenty of leg room here. If you take the casters off, obviously there'll be less leg room, but the pedals will be lower as well, so that'll be more comfortable. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much for listening.